welcome to the With You webinar. Well, webinar is plural. We have more than one happening this week through Westwood Community Church, and I'm John Diddy. So if you're joining us and you don't know who I am the kids pastor at Westwood at our Chanhassen campus, and so we're just really excited that you would take time out tonight to join us in this just adventure of talking about parenting. Our hope and prayer is that we can be in this with you, and that as we are all experiencing something very different in these last weeks, and really the weeks as we look forward, that hopefully tonight can meet a felt need for you as you're trying to parent in this moment. And tonight we have a couple of people that are with me, and so I am very excited. So first I'd like to throw it to Megan Sage. She's going to be my co-host tonight. So Megan, would you tell a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks, John. Yeah, I'm excited to be here tonight. I'm Megan Sage. I'm the pastor of our student ministries, and we are so excited. I know as a student pastor, as well as a mom myself, I've been looking forward to this webinar to have a conversation, really. Our hope and our prayer is that we get to have a conversation tonight on how to parent well. We know that it's been a challenging season as everything has transitioned, and so we hope that this is helpful for you guys and that it's something that's helpful for us as well as we navigate. If you have any questions, there's going to be a Q&A. So just to orient you a little bit, down below there's a bar and it has a little Q&A button. Just click that if you have any questions pertaining to what we're talking to or any questions that we haven't touched on. And I'll either interject with those, I'll be fielding those, or we'll have a question and answer time that I'll save some of those for at the end. So I'll be looking forward to those and answering some of those live on the spot as we can. So excited.
Perfect. Thank you. And then next we have Jim and Lynne Jackson. So they're our guests tonight, and just thank you right up front for being a part of this tonight. They co-founded together an organization called Connected Families back in 2002, and they have a passion to resource families. And so if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your journey of Connected Families and just what brings you here tonight.
Yeah, we're happy to do that. Just quickly, a little over 20 years ago, both Lynn and I are working with other people's kids, and we're seeing that that there's only so much good work we can do working with other people's kids when the nature of relationships between parents and kids isn't what it could be, isn't what parents want that relationship to be. And we felt a push, a nudge from God to launch out from what we were doing and start Connected Families. Well, actually, we didn't feel nudged to start Connected Families yet. We felt a nudge to do this kind of work in our area, and it turns out that the best way to do that would be to launch a nonprofit. And so we did, and that was a little over 18 years ago. And since that time, we've done everything we could every day to inspire and equip parents to have impactful relationships with their kids that are relationships of God's grace and truth.
So we do workshops, parent coaching, online courses, partner with churches like Westwood and schools. And it's all about helping parents want to become the parents they want to be.
Yeah, and there's a little secret here that I'll let you all in. I don't know how many of you know this. I don't know even John and Megan if you know this, but we started doing the work that we are doing now at Westwood before we launched Connected Families. It was almost an incubation place for us. So Westwood is our launching church, our what we still consider our home church, our sending church into the world now. We've got a reach of ministry that extends across the whole continent and into other parts of the world. Our recent podcasts have been downloaded in over 40 countries. So we feel very humbled by what God's done through us. And I have to give a little piece of full disclosure before we get started here. And that is that Lynn and I have got a lot of parenting experience that we draw on, but we have never parented through a pandemic.
Nope.
So we're going to do the best we can. We've heard from thousands of parents, even just in recent days through a survey that we took. And we'll do our best to share meaningful experience and learning with you all.
It's great. Yeah, I think we're all new to this pandemic thing. And, you know, as a parent, and even just within my neighborhood, you know, talking to my friends and neighbors, it's very difficult, this moment. it's a fully different challenge. So with that survey, what did you hear back? Can you give us an overview of really what you learned through that survey?
Well, we learned that some parents are really thriving in the slower pace. About 15% have less stress than normal. They're enjoying that extra time of connection. About 15% have about the same level, but maybe on different issues. And then about 40% have noticeably more stress, with 25% much more stress, and a little under 5% said, I need a lifeline.
Yeah.
We are sinking fast. This is really, really rough.
And the issues that we heard about in that survey, I think, are common in our community as well. There's joblessness. There's people working, two parents working in healthcare systems, going out and then coming home and worrying about their kids. There's parents who are all of a sudden going from a professional and a parent to a work-at-home professional, a parent, and a homeschool overseer. We heard a number of parents say it sure would have been a whole lot easier if we would have just gotten to choose our own curriculum and oversee the schooling of our children. It's been really hard, and I hope there's a new appreciation for teachers growing out there. We got this note yesterday from a parent that I think sort of captures an awful lot of what we are hearing from especially the stressed families. The note said, I wish I knew someone who had prior experience of living through a global pandemic where two working parents are doing their hours while being quarantined in a house of young children who are in their first week of distance learning. We're on the struggle bus here. Can I just say that overseeing a Zoom conference with 21 preschoolers goes exactly how you would expect it to. And a second grade Google Meets meeting with a technologically lacking, ready to retire teacher that doesn't get much better.
Doesn't go much better.
Each day I find myself saying, I can't believe this just happened. And then I wake up the next day to be proven wrong again and again. Today there were tears from 4 of 5 of us. And tomorrow I'm hoping to cut the number in half. Please help. And I think we've heard a lot of that sort of sentiment from parents.
Yeah, I can relate. For me, you have one moment of the day where you're exasperated around the table trying to teach math, something I never thought I would have to do. And then you end the day maybe around well, it snowed here, right? But last week at least, sitting out by the fire making s'mores and so it's these bouncing back and forth one to the other, and the emotions are so high. So how do you, or what are you telling parents as they've come to you? What might be helpful for them?
Well, the first thing is really that it is okay to struggle.
For sure.
It's normal. Adjusting to all this new normal is really a challenge, and to just say that out loud, even with a little smile on your face, like, hey, this is really hard, isn't it, kid?
Yeah, just acknowledge it. Gary Smalley said something years ago. Gary is one of the best known Christian mentors to especially marriage, was closely aligned with Focus on the Family for years. And he said, the real secret to close-knit relationships is shared experiences that turn into trials. And John, what you just described, it was chaos, it was a mess, but then, you know what, we went out and we had some s'mores, and, we're having this trial of an experience, and then we make it a shared experience, and hey, we're going through this together. And it sure helps to know, there's a kind of crazy dynamic, isn't there, in the fact that for the first time really in world history, the majority of the world's population all knows that each other is going through the same thing together. And I think one of the things that the survey revealed to me, I pored for hours and hours over about 1,000 different responses with quite a bit of detail from families, that the families who are doing the best, from my observation, are those families who figured out a couple of key things. And the first really is to just lower their expectations about what the day is supposed to be like. And at Westwood, the community, here, we're a high achieving, leadership rich environment of people who like to get stuff done and who like to set goals and achieve them. And I'm all about setting goals, but I think it's important that as leaders, we set goals for the people that the people around us are aware of, that we can reach and celebrate. Let's have let's spend more time celebrating the goals we reached than feeling bad about the goals we keep failing to meet. So just lowering the bar is such an important thing. And, you know, we heard families say a few different things about that.
To just be able to skip the online learning sessions if they're not helping. It's like, feel free to email the teacher and go, this really isn't working for our family and I need to protect my kids.
Yeah,
so.
Is there a different way? And we've heard parents just say, you know what, the math that's going down online, and in that setting, my kiddo isn't getting it. Can you help me get it to him another way? And then possibly work with them in a different way. We saw another article, well, there's several pieces about computer use. And we all, I think, have been well educated about the ills of letting our kids be on screens. Well, now they're on screens all day for school, many of them, or much of the day. And then they want to play video games. And of course they get captured in that two-dimensional world, and it's something they can control and something, and we want to just take it away from them. But then if we do, then, and we're trying to do our work or trying to do the laundry or trying to cook a meal, and then the kid, you know, like, give yourself a little grace to say yes a little bit more often to your kids, even about using those screens. And then just let your kids know, you know what, this is an exception for these times. We'll, you know, another half hour, whatever. We're going to do a reset when this is all over. I mean, that's give yourself permission to do that if you need to. But if you don't need to, then don't. You know, find other ways to involve your kids in the meals, in the laundry. You know, we've heard a number of parents talk about the fact that their kids are learning things they never knew how to do before. Family that we know well in a nearby community, their high school and beyond kids are learning to prepare meals for the whole family for the first time in their lives. And that's new to them. And it's like, wow. And at first they complained, but now they actually are enjoying it.
Yeah, they're excited about it. So another thing is to just end your day on an up note. And one of the things that I really have encouraged parents to do, and I get a lot of feedback on, is to just start a little sort of affirmation journal for bedtimes, because it does two things. If you know that you're going to write something positive about your child at the end of the day, I noticed you doing such and such, and that was so helpful because, that kind of a thing. If you know you're going to need to do that, it's going to up your game on looking for positive things in your child. But the other significant thing that it does is it puts your child's brain into a positive, peaceful, encouraged mindset right before bed. And how the brain goes to bed affects how it integrates memories from the day. So it can begin to mitigate some of that stress that happened during the day and focus on integrating the positive memories that happened during the day. And it can actually affect your child's brain wiring. Yeah. So just doing something at the end of the day to really build in an affirmation piece for your kids and then also for you. Mm-hmm. Self-affirming is so important. It's like affirm your child and then go, you know, I noticed myself today. You know, a lot of times I blow up, but you know, that time when it got really crazy and I took a breath, that felt really good to me. Say that out loud. Mm-hmm. That gives you a little endorphin release. Sure. It's going to give the kids, and it just a spirit of encouragement. Yeah, well, family.
And for those with spouses alongside you, it's even an extra dose to be able to do that, you know, with each other. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we're not going to make this a marriage seminar, but we know that being together in this sort of tight quarters and you know, it brings out the best of us, but it brings out the worst of us. And sometimes that's hard. And we know from hearing from parents that marriages are strained more than usual. And so to be able to say to each other at the end of a day and end the day on that same note, you know, I notice you working so hard to juggle all the things today, hon. I just appreciate how hard you're working. Mm-hmm. Is so much more defining, I think, and helpful and constructive than to say, you know, how come you were so nitpicky about that as we're trying to go to bed tonight? Like, bad idea.
Yeah.
So we wrote a blog post about a month ago that we got a ton of really great feedback about. We'll put a link. I don't know if you're doing show notes or how this is actually going to work, but is that something you put up now, or do you want it for the show notes? Or
We'll make sure that everyone gets the link to that afterwards. Yep.
Yeah, so it's a blog post that we wrote that basically is it's a simple framework. And if you know about our ministry or have been exposed to some of the things Lynn and I teach, we teach a simple framework. And it's really, it's just a blog post about how this framework can apply to us in a pandemic, and how do we become people of a strong foundation, and how do we make sure to keep connection alive, and then how do we nurture our kids' capacities and make sure they know they're coached to do what they're able to do, what God built them to do, and then when it's time to correct them, how are we doing that in love, so that they're reminded about what's true, that they're loved, that they're safe with us, that they're capable and called by God to do good things, and that they're responsible ultimately for their actions and their relationship with God. So get a hold of that, and we'll make sure that you have that in your show notes, or however it's going to work here.
Perfect. What all these things you're touching on, it's just like I could give you an example of different points in just today. Like this morning, I was awakened by my child at 5:30, leaning over my bed saying, "Can we make waffles?"
I love that.
I have to admit, it took me till 7:30 to say okay, but still,
you didn't even stay up telling manly stories.
Well, I was like, what's stopping me from making waffles this morning? Nothing, right? And so he worked on math, I worked on waffles, and yeah, trying to make this moment different, but also really good. And
Yeah.
so as I've been hearing from parents, one of the things that we're in a context here where we're talking about faith. And so one of the things that has come up is, how do we help build faith within kids during this time? And so did your survey address that at all, or just from your past, as you're talking to parents, have you thought about how do we build faith in kids during this experience? We have time, so.
Yeah.
For sure.
What we really feel like one of the most important things is, no matter what the situation is, to just be able to see God's presence in the middle of it. And so if things are more stressed, to bring God's mercy and purposes into that. Don't waste a good crisis, essentially. And there was a time that I remember being in a real power struggle with one of our kids. And I had just been in my life.
It was a stressful time.
It was a stressful time. He was stressful. It was a stressful moment. And because I'd been just working on understanding God's love and grace, I was able to just hear God in that moment. And I turned to my son and I said, you know what? I feel like the Lord just told me He has so much mercy on us in our struggle. He knows how hard it is for you and I to get along, and He cares about us. The angst just left the room and we figured it out. But that's a really important point. If you get all the way through this and you feel like this is one of the roughest times of your life, but you can look back and go, this was when we learned that God was with us, and His mercy was real in the ugliest, messiest situations of our life. What a huge lesson to learn. So that's the first thing, is to just see God's mercy in it, and then to sense His purpose in these trials. And
I mean, I have to confess, listening to Lynn say that, and knowing that there's parents out there, like, for some of us, what's happening right now can press our own faith. It's a challenge to us to go, wait a minute, do I really believe that God's behind all this, and that we serve a sovereign God who would allow a disease to shut down the world? And, candidly, as much as I work on being a man of faith, in the deep back part of me is this doubt that I struggle with. And I think all of us have some struggles with doubt from time to time. And to be able to what Lynn just described was sort of her work to bring God's mercy into her doubt about the fact that God was active in that relationship with she and that child. And so she did some work, and then she verbalized it. She did her work out loud to grab a hold of faith. And then she shared that work with her kids. And so, for me, as a young dad, when I was wrestling with various issues, I would ask the kids to pray for me. I would tell them a little bit in child appropriate sorts of terms. I'm just really struggling to trust God for this right now. And I'm feeling tempted to try to take control on my own. And I'm feeling tempted to be angry at so-and-so or such and such. Would you pray for me? And And then there's some verses that I'm learning and memorizing that that are helping me get through this. And so, I worked through Philippians chapter 4 was a really important chapter in my life as a young man, and still to this day, and especially those verses where it says, be anxious in nothing, but in everything with prayer and petition and thanksgiving in my heart. So gratitude as I make requests. Let these requests be made known to God. And then it doesn't say I'm going to get what I want, but it says the peace of God that transcends understanding will guard my heart and mind in Christ Jesus. And I would literally go sometimes on walks around the block, just saying nothing but that verse and preventing my brain from thinking any of the thoughts that made me anxious, and just keep claiming by faith that this was true and asking God. My request ultimately became not fix my circumstances, but give me your peace. And that was my process, and I shared it with our kids. And whatever your process is, reading the Bible, music, songs, memorizing scripture, invite your kids into that with you and use the resources. I know Westwood has a ton of resources that they make available to parents like you, like us, like we were even back in the day. And so I just encourage you to take advantage of those things. And I want to say one more thing about that. When I worked at a youth outreach with high-risk kids for 12 years. And some of you might be familiar with the place called Treehouse. And I know Westwood has been supportive of Treehouse. And I worked there for 12 years. And as a leader in that setting, I would really invite my staff every time that you're with students in one-to-one settings, get your Bible out and read something familiar. If there's nothing new going on, read the thing you read last time with those young people, but lean into God's word for especially the difficult times in life, and get that Bible open. Read verses at mealtime, at bedtime, make that be part of the positive memories and affirmations, perhaps in the evening. Those sorts of things with God's word, with God's truth, with your work to grow in faith as a parent are the true methods for discipleship that I think have been passed down from generation to generation since the time of Christ.
Yeah, I thank you for all of that. I mean, as I've been able to be at home now some Sundays, it's been it's such a unique opportunity that we have to try to be all in a room together, to do church in a wholly different way, to do faith development in a different way. So as Westwood, we're providing, and we're excited to provide these things. We use the Parent Q app. So parents, if you don't have that, go download that. That has resources for you to have conversations with your kids, and along with the curriculum that we send out. So it's all right there within the app. You can go to the Westwood homepage and get to all the resources that we have. We just produced the Easter Jam. Our student ministries and our kids ministries both have YouTube channels where you can engage in content, and then not just as a student, but as the family. So we've been watching youth group together as a family. And I don't know that I'll ever have a Monday, Thursday service again. That when we were asked to set this space, it involved a candle and 4 pizza boxes. So, and it was hard maybe to pay attention, but it gave us a conversation that we would have never had with our kids. And it was really, really good. So,
John, can I jump in here real quick? We had a question come in, just so you guys know, if you are watching and a question that you have, you can just go down to the bar on the bottom. There's a Q&A button. You can submit it. If we can't address it now, we'll try to hit it in our Q&A section at the end. But Jim and Lynn, the question is, how do you recommend helping to address kids' fears and affecting how they live and how they see God? What do you have to say for that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's one we hear. I think our tendency, especially in a overcoming sort of a mindset, is that when our kids feel fear, we try to talk them out of having that fear. You really don't have good reason to be afraid. There's other people who have it worse than us. And without intending to do it necessarily, we tend to communicate a message to our kids that says, Number one, you shouldn't feel the way you feel. And number two, because you feel the way you feel, there's something wrong with you. And what that tends to do, what that dynamic tends to do is drive the fear underground. I don't want to, well, I guess I can't talk about it anymore. And so it becomes anxiety. It stirs around inside. The Bible tells us, and it's a little bit of an adaptation of this, I think, but blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are those who have heavy, difficult, hard feelings inside, and they get them out. That's what mourning is I get what's that difficult, hard feelings inside of me, I get them out. And that's how I get comfort. And so we need to give our kids, we need to give our kids permission to express these things without trying to talk them out of it, without trying to rationalize it, without trying to tell them that their fears are irrational. Now, some of their fears are rational and some are not. And so, working with that, those, like, I'm scared right now. And so are there ways that when our kids express fear to us, we can empathize with them, which then brings us to the God part, because the Bible tells us, Jesus, Hebrews 4:15, you've memorized it. What does it say?
For we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who has been tested in all things, like as we are, yet without sin. So
maybe a simpler version of that is Jesus gets us, and because he gets us, he can help us. And so for us to be able to model that sort of, I get it and I empathize and I feel fear too, maybe not exactly about what your kids feel fear about, but so to join them in the fear and say, yeah, here's what I'm afraid about. And so now let's go to God together with that. And again, there's that anxiety verse. Anxiety and fear are pretty closely related to each other. So can we apply the truth of Philippians 4:6 and 7 to that fear together? Not just here, you should believe this verse, but I'm going to work at believing this verse. Let's work on believing it together.
Mm-hmm. And it helps, especially for the littler kids, to have creative ways to express their fear, because they may not be able to articulate it well. So drawing pictures about it, doing Play-Doh about it, even doing imaginative play about it, with themes that might deal with anxiety and that kind of thing. I was talking with a parent who their child had invented a game where they were the mice inside the tent, that they had made out of tablecloths, and the mom was supposed to be the cat that was sneaking up on them. And it seemed like such an analogy for, we're hiding here in our house and the virus might come and get us, So those kinds of play things can help kids work out those feelings. And it's good when you play with kids too, to put them in a power position, because that can just sort of relieve some of that anxiety. Like they're the ones that push down the big bumbling adult onto the couch when you play wrestling, and you fall on the floor and you fall on top of them and you roll around and you just do all this goofy stuff, and that just can release those neurochemicals that are going to help relieve some of that anxiety.
Yeah. Another just quick thought that I have about it, and we used to talk about this a lot with the high-risk kids and then with our own young kids. It's like, if there's a particular difficult feeling or experience that kids are going through that is hard to talk about directly, and this kind of alludes to what Lynn was saying about, make up play about this, but then, how can you talk about it indirectly? How can you watch a TV show where there's somebody scared and, hit pause? And we can do that. We have the luxury of being able to hit pause on almost everything we watch these days.
Or reading a book.
Right, or reading a book. So you stop and you say, so if what do you suppose that person in that scene is feeling right now? And what would be a constructive thing or a helpful thing for them to do about that feeling? And what do you think they might do? And would that be good or would that not be so good? And so sort of use the objective, not emotionally charged stuff to help do some education about what fear is, about how you overcome it. And then when the real thing hits, it's like practicing. It's like a practice for a basketball game. Let's pretend there's a 7-foot tall guy that we're playing against, or a 6-foot tall guy in junior high or shorter, whatever. There's a really tall person. Let's practice. Oh, now it's the game time, and there's a tall guy, and we're prepared to play against the tall guy now because we've practiced it when the pressure was not on.
That's awesome. We've been discussing my odd dreams at breakfast. It makes some of the scarier dreams that my younger one is having in all of this a lot more lighthearted.
Yeah,
that's a great example.
It's a fabulous example. Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that you think, as you're thinking back on the input that you've had from these other parents, is there anything else that just sticks out as, I want to tell this community about this something?
Yeah, I think, and I dealt with this today with a couple. The issue, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but the issue of our marriages is just so critical. And to be able at the end of our hard days to come to a place where we can grab each other's hands and look each other in the eye and say, this is really hard, but I'm so glad I'm going through it with you. It is something to work toward, work for. And if that's honestly, if you're partnered in your home with your spouse and you can move toward that place, it's such a critical place for you as a married couple, because your kids are watching the stress and the tension between the two of you. And a number of our mentors along the way have suggested to us the greatest gift you can give your kids is the gift of working toward a strong marriage. And to do it in a way they can watch it and see it. Now, I recognize not everybody is married. There's some single parents out there, but then to be able to seek the sorts of help that you seek and support that you seek, again, in appropriate ways, in ways that your kids can watch you grab a hold of caring for somebody else and being cared for by somebody else, is a great gift for them to be able to see. And, by all means, if that's a struggle, find a way to get some help to talk about that. We've got a couple living, a single gal living in our home preparing to get married, and they're online doing marriage preparation counseling right now. And so there's actually tremendous work being done online right now to help couples. And so I just want to emphasize that. And I think there's one other thing too that we heard a lot in the survey, and that's about families in which one of the children is perhaps struggling more than the others, and has sort of become a lightning rod for the family stress.
And that's often a child that is just stressed, anxious, and discouraged. And it's not like this child just has bad character and intentionally wants to get all the negative attention in the family. It's like there's things that are making them struggle more. And, it can just be sometimes just a neurochemical thing, and they're highly sensitive, or they're just overwhelmed with life, or whatever it is. But, could be even low serotonin. You know what the symptoms of that are? That your child is anxious, discouraged, impulsive, aggressive, has difficulty of sleeping, low self-esteem.
Yeah.
If that doesn't sound like maybe your intensely struggling child, I don't know, but it does describe a lot of them. And sometimes it's like their bodies are working against them. There was a little 4-year-old that said, after being in a crowded situation, she said, my brain couldn't make my body stop being mean. My heart is kind, but my body doesn't listen. What an articulate way to express.
I was going to say, that was a 4-year-old. That could have been a 59-year-old.
And her parents, were very understanding and encouraging, but a lot of times these kids end up with an identity that just says, I am the family troublemaker. I am the problem child.
Yeah.
And sometimes that actually reflects what the parents think.
Yep. And we honestly haven't heard what I'm about to say in the survey, but I thought about this as I was reading. And, there's parents are doing a number of things to just sort of buy time. Whether it's a bribe, or whether it's more computer or TV, or whether it's, no, you don't have to go to this, you don't have to do that work right now, or you don't have to clean up that mess right now. We give a lot of grace for a lot of that stuff. One of the things we would suggest you don't do is give your kids sugar. Sugar is a depressant. Lynn, you work a lot with kids, and as Lynn pops a sugar-free cough drop. Giving kids sugar just messes with all of their physical symptoms and their emotional symptoms, and do the best that you can to, splurge on the big doughy pizza from time to time, absolutely, but not as your go-to every meal type of comfort food eating.
Yeah, Dr. Lawrence Cohen says he believes that sugar is, when kids are sugarholics, it's because they're trying to regulate their emotions. So instead, really enter into those emotions with them. One of the free downloads that we have on our website can really help these intense, pent up, sensitive, anxious kids to just get some of that movement and laughter that their system needs to get those serotonin levels up.
Without even having to go outside.
Right. Yep, it's called 60 Ways to Get Kids Moving and Laughing. So you can go to our website, connectedfamilies.org, and just get that free download. It's made from, as a therapist, I developed lots with the other therapists in the clinic. We had 4 pages of ideas to just help kids get moving and have fun. And
it's stuff you can do together too. Yeah, it doesn't have to just be the kids. Our bottom line in all of this, and this is, for me, the big takeaway, and we saw this time and time again in the reports of families that were sort of shifting their perspective about all of this and what their goal is. That the goal was, let's get through this strong and let's make the best of this opportunity and do, take advantage of the time we have to do better learning and better this and better that. And it got harder and harder as the first week went past, and parents started to realize, that big, hairy, audacious goal we have for our family for this time of life just needs to maybe settle back and become a secondary goal to the goal of finding ways to make good memories out of this time. We got through it together. We are overcomers. We have been able to keep, mostly good attitudes, and we've been able to reconcile the many conflicts that we've had. And some families have made a goal of learning to get better at reconciling their conflicts. So often in life, it's so fast paced. We just keep moving. We don't do the hard work as parents to lead our kids into the processes that they need to learn in order to resolve conflict with health and constructively, so that at the end of that resolve, there can be a celebration and true reconciliation and restoration of relationship. So make good memories, set goals that are different than your normal goals would be around whatever positive possibilities you see for you and your family.
And it's because of this desire to help parents, take steps forward in the heightened conflict that everybody's experiencing. We've offered our sibling conflict online course for any donation from $1. We've had $1 to $100 for that course, just to try to help parents take advantage of this time and really teach those conflict resolution skills.
I think I will be signing up for that. So thank you for that. My son, we've been trying to get the serotonin levels up just by when he's got these sheets that in his workbook, and at the bottom of the workbook it has exercises, right? So you get through whatever you're doing, and now here, go do this exercise. And I had heard from my wife that she doesn't make him do those. So I guess, oops, I made him do them. But he had a good retort to me when I told him, it says here you have to do 20 squats. And he goes, you got to do them with me, Dad, because
there you go. I knew that was coming.
You should be strong like me. So, but great. Thank you. Megan, are there any questions that we have right now?
Yeah, one of the questions that came in was, they know, Jim and Lynn, that you deal with discipline and connecting to a child's heart. And they want to know, how do you maintain a positive relationship when emotions and situations can change hour to hour and minute to minute?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot in that question. Some of what's changing is changing externally. And I mean, we read the news and we watch the markets and we see the reports from various politicians and don't know what to think and what to believe. And 1 minute we feel optimistic and then we feel pessimistic. So certainly we're being drawn into this change from the outside, but then inside, conflicts arise, different stuff happens. I think it really, for me, it goes back to what I said just a couple of minutes ago, which is, really being thoughtful as parents about what is my primary goal here? Am I trying to just do quick fixes to get on with an expedient life and a peaceful life? And am I believing that I shouldn't have to deal with this? And so let's make it go away. Sometimes as parents, we get surprised or we act surprised by the things we expect are going to happen. Like if I put those 2 kids over there, I know they're going to have a fight, or I know they're going to make a mess, or and then they have a fight or they make a mess, and we go over there and we get mad. Like, well, wait a minute. I set them up for that. I predicted it was going to happen, and now I'm mad about it. Did I add my own anger to the prediction? I probably ought to think about that next time I make that prediction. But, what could I do that would predict a different outcome, which is, what? If it goes haywire, then I'm going to come in and we're going to figure out a way to make a positive something out of this, and making this positive relationship our primary goal, instead of getting all the right behavior all the time, the primary goal, I think is the key to making this shift and being prepared. We used to, again, back to the youth work that I did, I learned this principle. We'd go on adventure trips with these young people, and we'd go on mission trips with them. And as part of the pre-trip training, we would train ourselves as staff, and then the young people to learn to choose joy and to prepare for the unexpected. Expect the unexpected. And if you expect the unexpected, then when it happens and your goal is to choose joy, you can go, oh, flat tire. Bummer, we're going to be late, and we're going to figure out what to do to make the best of the extra time we have on the road. And it's just, it's this whole shift of goal and mindset in the daily grind of unexpected flat tire, figurative or literal, after flat tire. So
I think that's good, Jim. One of the things I've experienced for sure with my 4-year-old is that things are unexpected. He planted some flowers in a cupcake yesterday, and all these cupcakes that I had made for the family were no longer cupcakes. And so choosing joy amidst the unexpected, that's real.
Yeah.
That's such a great opportunity to model that kind of a thing.
And it's so much easier to teach your kids the inappropriateness of things. Was that inappropriate or not? Or was that a 4-year-old doing something developmentally appropriate? Right. Just didn't have any idea. But even if they know that it's wrong, we've got an opportunity to choose joy when the unexpected happens. And then when we're able to choose joy, oh my goodness, I thought those were going to be cupcakes for the family. And I'll bet you didn't know that. And now they're a garden. Well, so that must have been fun to do. But now we got to make more cupcakes. And the consequence for making a garden out of those is that we're going to make cupcakes again together. I'm just making this up, and I don't know if there was time to do that. But out of that mindset, that's how you can respond to something like that. But if your mindset is, I got to get the cupcakes done so I can get the next thing done, and the baskets that we're going to put them in to deliver done, and it's got to all be done by 3:30, and now you blocked my goal. Like, my primary goal was to get this done, and you blocked it. Now you're the problem. And then I have a different kind of energy for that. But if my primary goal is to figure out what does it take to create the kind of memories that are positive, but that still keep kids accountable for stuff when they do stuff they ought not do.
Yeah, but you might even just go, oh, we have a garden now. So how about we fix these so that they could be cupcakes again, or something. Yep. So it's not, I get to bake them twice when I make a mess.
Right.
No, that's so helpful.
I just have a quick thought about that, which is a lot of times when relationships are stressed and there's so much going on, parents are like, I don't have time to sit down on the floor and play Legos or Barbies for a half an hour. So they sort of give up on connection with their kids. Mm-hmm. And we really teach parents to do something, we call them sort of quick connections or flyby connections or whatever, where you just can be like just a few seconds, or it can be a half a minute, or just a really short time. We actually have a post called Prevent Misbehavior in 30 Seconds or Less, about all the fun ways that you can connect with a child. One time it was, you, I feel so strongly about you. Another time it was, just singing a little goofy song. You're my girl, whom I love, far above you, above all the girls in the world. I just had one daughter. 7 seconds it takes to do that, but it downloads all this joy, and it again brings the serotonin up, oxytocin, all those happy chemicals. Good for both of us. Yeah. So those quick connections can really go a long way in keeping the tone in the family encouraged, joy-filled, connective when there's not a lot of time.
That's huge. All right, I have one more question for you guys from the Q&A. So how do we set a routine for our family when there are so many work, school expectations that keep changing? Where do you recommend to start with routines?
Wow. Well, Routines matter. It's very important to be able to the degree that we can, to build routine into our days. We recognize that to prescribe my routine to you probably isn't realistic, or vice versa. And so, the big premise here is, can you establish 2 or 3 concretes in each day that can be your routines? It doesn't have to be, here's what we're going to do from 8 to 9, and here's what we're going to do from 9 to 10:30, and so on through the day. It could be like, we're going to get up and we're going to have breakfast together, and we're going to assess what the day holds. And then we're going to, presumably it's going to be this, that, or the other thing. And yeah, we're going to set people up to do those things. And then that if you finish, then you have the privilege of using the computer or playing with the toys or whatever. But that's going to be up to you, because I got to work. But then let's meet again at noon. And sometimes I get called into meetings at noon. And so I may only be able to join for 5 minutes. By the way, I think workplaces more than ever are recognizing that the pressures of working at home may mean that productivity goes down a little bit. But certainly to be talking with people, where you work, to make sure that you're buying even that 5 minutes you might need at lunch if you think you might not get it, and to advocate for that, because at the end of the day, you getting your job done is not as important as you getting your family done at this time, whatever that means, getting your family done, making a priority out of your family over a priority out of your work. And I recognize we got to provide for our families and our kids and, all those things. So it's about fighting for that priority of family, even if the work demands are high, but create the routine of, what is it, breakfast, lunch, and bedtime tucking in, or, breakfast, lunch, dinner, bedtime tucking in, or, breakfast, mid-afternoon exercise break, and tucking in for dinner, whatever it might be, or what works for your family. We have a lot to learn from homeschoolers about this, who have figured out these rhythms and figured out how to make routines out of their days in ways that keep kids engaged and for the most part, wanting to make the progress that the family is making.
We have a lot on our website about family meetings. And that's a really great way to plan this structure. And I would encourage you to start small with the structure rather than starting elaborate, but just figuring out, okay, as a family, what are our non-negotiables? What has to happen every day? And then let's just work at that and then add other pieces over time. But a family meeting gives, especially if it's like once a week, it gives you the opportunity to go, how's the structure working? What do we need? What was good about it this week? And what was everybody's successes this week? And that's how you start. And then you go, what needs to be tweaked? And you can talk about that. But one of the things we just encourage parents is to have a bowl of popcorn for each child and one kernel at a time. And you'd be amazed how much difference that makes in kids' ability to attend to the topic.
Oh, so the popcorn comes to the family meeting. I wasn't quite sure where you were going with that.
You make popcorn. Kids love popcorn. It's like, whoa, here we come. And one kernel at a time. And we're going to all pay attention while we're eating our popcorn and talking about these issues. Otherwise, you got headstands in the corner and interrupting. It's just a little thing that makes a big difference.
And sometimes if you can get them to be engaged in your first series of family meetings for 5 minutes and make a few comments, and then they stay in the room but stand on their heads, we call that a win.
Yep.
And then, next time maybe it'll be 10 minutes. But yeah, this central question in the family meeting, it doesn't have to be an elaborate agenda. It's just like, what does anybody want to talk about? And, or maybe even the first family meeting question is when this is all over, whenever that might be, what do we want to have done? Or what do we want to say is true about us? Or what are some things we want to make sure are present in every day? Just simple questions that gives everybody input, especially as there are older kids, and we recognize, there's people with college kids staying at home, and there's some unique strain with that, right? Like they've been off living on their own and they're their own people, and now they are home and they're being treated like they were when they were in high school, a lot of them. And, how do you give them ownership in all of the different things that are going on in the family? Instead of just telling your kids what's happening all the time, how could you enlist their ownership in some of the things that are happening without giving away your authority as a parent?
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. There's a lot there. And I'm bringing the popcorn to my meetings from now on. The hard part will be me doing one kernel at a time. Well, in a minute, I wanted to just close our time in prayer, but I wanted everyone to know that the link for this webinar, it will be posted and emailed to you tomorrow along with other resources. So we've been talking about other resources throughout this, whether it's Westwood specific, whether it's connected families. We want to get that all out to each and every one of you that's here with us. So that'll be coming to you tomorrow. If you know someone who couldn't be here, feel free to send it their way. And then the second is that tomorrow night, like I said at the very beginning, we have multiple webinars happening. So tomorrow night's webinar is where you can ask Pastor Joel. It's on some level ask the pastor, but it's faith during COVID. And so it's going to be a time where we can dive deep on that topic for an hour. And so I would invite you back for that. Again, it's at 8 o'clock tomorrow night. And it'll just be I think an enriching time as Joel just spends moments unpacking what this could be for our faith life. And as we've discussed even a bit tonight, I mean, we have to talk about our doubts. We have to talk about our laments, and we also have to talk about our hope. And all that is in the midst of this. And so we would encourage you to come back for that. And thank you, Jim and Lynn, once again, just for being here and being a part of this and being a part of Westwood and giving us this opportunity to connect. So I'm going to pray for all of us and even for this future seminar regarding siblings, so and the wide impact that will have. So God, we thank you for this moment in time that we can pause when there is so much change around us and so much uncertainty. We can be certain in you, and we can be certain in what you can give us each and every day. Like we've been discussing here at Westwood, there's new mercy every day. And so God, we ask you for that mercy tonight. We ask you for it tomorrow. And we ask you for a special dose of mercy when it comes to being parents and walking alongside our kids in this moment. And God, I pray for Jim and Lynn, for connected families, for their ministry and impact during this time, and for their seminar coming up and what you will do in that. So in your name, amen.
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 Thanks for having us.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And thank you everyone for being with us tonight. And we'll say good night.